and thank you for tuning into part 2 of how to install a Waterwave frontal wig, my pretty little dreamers. So to start off plucking, what I usually do is I like to part out my established parts. So if you're going to have a middle part and a side part, go ahead and part those out so that you don't pluck in those designated areas. What I just did is I parted out the pre-plucked area, and then I'm going to take about an inch behind that as well. So for the first row where I'm starting off, I like to wet that, brush that back, and the sole purpose of me plucking this first row is just to decrease the density in the frontal wig. So I just want to thin that harsh line out. This is where the frontal effect begins. So here's a bit of an up close and personal point of view. As you guys can see, what I did with the first row, I kind of thinned it out. Now with the second row, is just to help that effect. You want to skip. So basically, when I say skip, you basically just don't want to pluck in the same area. If you pluck close to the part, go over a little bit and pluck on that side. When you get to the next row where you didn't pluck in the previous row, pluck there. You want to keep parting off rows until you get to the very front of the frontal. So the steps that you've taken from row 1 all the way to row 4 to 6, depending on how far back you want on your frontal, you're going to take that through all 4 sections. I like to divide the frontal into 4 sections. So middle part and then side parts. That way I'm not dealing with the whole frontal and I don't feel like it's overwhelming. And don't be scared to pluck. Like, if you're scared to pluck, it's okay to under pluck than to over pluck. Forgive my hands. I have eczema. My hands are dry. It's just in the water. So I know I could have put some lotion on, but child, I was trying to get this video out. So after I plucked all the sections separately, I'm going to pluck that whole section as a whole, that whole quarter of a section at least. I have OCD, so if you see me just playing with the parts, I'm just playing with the parts. I'm not doing anything serious. I am going to pluck the parts off camera. I'm going to do the middle part and one of the side parts, but I am going to come back on camera and show you guys how I pluck the other side part. So I'm just establishing my middle part because I don't want to pluck in that designated area like I said the first time. And I'm going to take out a decent amount of hair. With that section back, push it back, and this first section, like I said, your main goal is just to thin it out. You don't want to bald it, you just want to thin out the density, because especially the middle parts are the thickest parts of the frontal. You want to get that, because if that back part is still really thick, when you part out that next section, you're not going to see much of a change. Like you see when I comb this back, you can see a change. You can see that it got lighter. The hair is not so dark. So I'm going to zoom in a bit so you guys can really see what I'm doing with my tweezers. Like I said, every frontal / closure is situational. I didn't skip every other with that row. At that row, I was pretty happy with how thin it was getting, so I just plugged in the areas that were thicker than the other ones. In this row, I'm doing every other, looking. So basically, plucking takes patience. You're not going to pluck a whole frontal in 15 minutes. I've done it. Was it worth the stress that I was under? No, but it was my fault. I was late and told the client I was going to have her wig plucked, and it wasn't plucked, so I put that upon myself. But realistically, it takes me at least 45 minutes if it's like the real thick, like boxy frontals, to pluck and get that realistic frontal hairline look. So what works best for me when I'm plucking frontals or closures is basically as I do my rows, I know I'm okay to stop plucking that row if it looks thin enough. I will continue to pluck the section as a whole if I feel like it needs to be plucked some more, but I won't thin a row out too much. That way I feel like that way you have more control and leeway as well, like, and you won't have those thick holes that you can't fix. Like as you can see, like right there in the widow's peak area, it needs to be plucked, it needs to be thinned out. So I'm gonna hit it. If I'm happy with it, I'll leave it alone. If not, I'll go in, and you can take that time after you brush everything or comb everything back. If you feel like a certain part of what you just plucked is too thick, you can go in and part that out and go back in and pluck it. Okay, so for this next side, I'm basically going to do the same thing I did to the other side. I established my side part and I'm going to pluck in rows. So I'm not going to do too much talking. It's going to be repetitive. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down below in the comment section and I will be happy to answer them. that was the process of me plucking. This is all the hair from all 4 sections. You may have more, you may have less, depending on how plucked you like your frontals to be. I pluck my frontals pretty decent, but I do leave space for customization in case you want to further customize. So I'm just going to further define my part, get the part exactly where I want it to be. I want them to both be even on both sides. So part it out as many times as you need to. And then you really want to get that part as clean as possible, because when you pluck, it's easier to just pluck in a pulling backwards motion, like you're tweezing your eyebrows. It's easier to do that if all the hairs are on the sides that they need to be on. That way you don't get a wide part. I'm just going to press some of the hairs that won't stay on the side that they're supposed to out of my way. And then I'm going to keep playing and perfecting this part until I am satisfied and happy. So you guys, don't be like me. These tweezers are perfect when trying to recreate a hairline, but they are not small enough. And I like the pointed tweezers for the parts, just because the pointed tweezer is only going to grab that one knot and not multiple knots. So you may see me part out the hairs that I don't want to tweeze every now and then. But for the most part, you literally, the way that I do it, especially since my knots are bleached really good, I look at it from afar, and if I see a knot that catches my attention, I pluck it, and then I go around the knot that I just plucked. I just continue looking at it, and whichever knots don't match my part, I don't pluck them out, if that makes sense. Because sometimes the hair might fall in the designated side that it's supposed to, but it just, where the knot is placed, it just doesn't work. It's in the part, so you might as well just pluck it out. A good way to help you keep the hairs from moving into your way is when you comb or brush the hairs out of your way, just keep the comb placed there and put your hand on top of it. When plucking a curved side part especially, it's kind of hard just because the way that the frontal is made, the grid lines are made straight in that curve. So when doing a curved part, it's all about an illusion. So honestly, if the knots are bleached enough to where I can't see them, I won't pluck them. But it all depends on the direction of where the hair falls and flows. So you see that little row right there? Like I was just plucking 1 or 2 of them, but right here, since the curve is getting a little bit more curvy, like a circle type curve, I'm gonna pluck like 2 or 3 holes in that same area. So hopefully you guys could understand, because I know when I talk sometimes it gets confusing, especially with this tongue piercing in my mouth. If I hear I'm clicking too much, I get sidetracked and lose train of thought. So hopefully you guys understand my tips and tricks. Hopefully they help you when you actually do bleach and pluck your frontals and or closures. And if you guys have any questions, comments, and concerns, please leave them down below. I will answer them. If you guys need me to do another video, a closure plucking tutorial, or a very detailed frontal, like I'll just do half of the frontal so I could really talk about it instead of trying to fit the whole frontal. It's no problem. Just let me know down below. And I hope you guys stay tuned for part 3, which is going to be the install portion of this how-to series. And have a blessed night, my beautiful little dreamers. Hope to see y'all in the next video. Bye. bye.